The things that Jesus commands us to do are incredibly, incredibly hard. In fact, so much so that they're downright impossible. In the Sermon on the Mount, he commands us to give to anyone who asks. He says if someone punches you in the face, turn and let them punch you again. He says that if someone enslaves you to do a task, do twice as much for them. And you tell these things to any normal person, shoot, any normal Christian, and they are just like, oh, hell no, that's crazy. That is crazy. It's impossible. And you know what? They're not wrong. It is impossible. It is absolutely impossible unless God empowers you to do it, unless God gives you the power to obey Jesus. Now, the power to obey Jesus comes from the Holy Spirit, but there's a little bit more to it than most people think. See, in the Bible, the Holy Spirit, the disciples received the Holy Spirit 2 times in 2 different ways. Jesus goes to the cross, he raises from the dead, and he hasn't shown himself to all the disciples yet. So they're in a room praying with a locked door, and Jesus appears in their midst. He appears right in the middle of them, and he starts talking to them. And it says that he blows on them, and the Holy Spirit enters them. So they receive the Holy Spirit. But that's not the only time they receive the Holy Spirit. Jesus tells them to wait. He says, don't do anything. Wait for the Holy Spirit and power. Right? So they receive the Holy Spirit, but Jesus tells them to wait till they receive it again and they're going to receive power, right? So then the day of Pentecost comes and they're doing the same thing. They're praying and the Holy Spirit smashes them again. And this time they are filled to the brim. The spark of the Holy Spirit turns into a raging fire that just pours out of them. In fact, so much that tongues of fire are visible on their heads. They speak in tongues. They perform miracles. People get healed by Peter's shadow and they start preaching the gospel. And it's the power of God that comes out in their words. And in that day, 2,000 people are brought to Christ. See, there's 2 different instances of receiving the Holy Spirit. Jesus says no one can say I am Messiah unless the Holy Spirit reveals it to them. So if you're a Christian, you probably have the spark of the Holy Spirit in you. But in order to obey Jesus' commands, you need to have that spark blow up into an absolute bonfire. You need to be empowered to obey Jesus. And let me tell you, when you receive the Holy Spirit's power, it comes pouring out of you, you overflow with the power of God. Suddenly, Jesus' commands become downright reasonable. They become something that you can actually do. You can actually achieve these things because God has empowered you to do it.